Hello, and welcome to Unit 15, Lesson 2, the Media Generator. My name is Dina, and here I will be teaching you about how to use the media generator, the different types of media you can use, and what effects they can achieve. Now that you are familiar with adding B-roll and multiple tracks on top of your rough cut, let's see what else we can add. You can find the media generator in this tab in the Explorer window. The media generator, as the title suggests, allows you to create new media to be used in your project. There's lots of things here for you to experiment with, but I will just be detailing the ones I use the most. Solid color, under Creative, to use as backgrounds, and of course, titles and text. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. First, let's look at solid color because it is the easiest. Let's go to the tab here, and you can see it really is just solid colors. These basically act like images. When you drag one onto your timeline, it will appear as a fixed image clip for a duration of 10 seconds. Once on the timeline, the settings for your generated media pop up in a separate window immediately. This includes the size of your solid color, as well as the duration, and most importantly, the color. Even though you can adjust the frame size and duration on top, I tend to just do it in pan crop, or just drag the image to the length you want later, directly from the timeline. Color, however, you definitely would want to adjust here. Here you see a bar of color that tells you what color your generated media is, and a sequence of 4 numbers next to that. This is where the preview window will come in handy. Place your timeline cursor on your block of color, and as you change the color in the settings, the preview window should show exactly what color you are choosing. You can click on the drop-down menu or on the color bar itself, and it reveals a color spectrum square for you to choose which color you want to use. My favorite tool here is the eyedropper tool, right here on the top of that menu bar. When you click on it, your cursor becomes a little eyedropper. Then, whatever you click on your screen, it will pick up that exact pixel and make your media the same color. Any inch of your screen. It even works on your computer icons, or if you open up a different window. For example here, we can make our media the same color as our main track color. The eyedropper tool is super useful when you have an exact color in mind, but don't know how to achieve it. The slider on the far right controls opacity, but the other slider and drop-down menus here are harder to explain as it gets into color theory. I'll try to explain it briefly here. Vegas's default color selector uses the RGB color model. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. These 3 colors mix in different amounts to create all the colors you can see. That's what the 4 numbers next to the bar mean. The first one is the amount of red, the second, the amount of green, the third, the amount of blue, and lastly, the 4th number is the opacity. The numbers start from 0 and go up to 1. So, if we change the numbers here to 0, 0, 0, 1, it turns black because that means there is no red, green, or blue added. On the other hand, if it's 1, 1, 1, 1, it turns white. anything in between creates all the colors in the world. If we only want a pure red now, let's try 1, 0, 0, 1. And you can see, it's just red. So let's go back to our first slider in the selection. It corresponds with the second drop-down menu here. By default, it should say R in the end. If it says R, then your first slider will control the amount of red in your final color. As you move it, you can see the first number changing, but the others all stay the same. So back to the drop-down menu, you can choose to have the slider adjust B, R, G, or even separate, which will make them all sliders. This is really advanced, and you most likely won't need it. Okay, after that brief detour on color theory, let's come back to our tracks. Like I said earlier, I like to use solid colors as backgrounds or to frame my images. Remember our picture-in-picture effect from the last lesson? Unit 15, Lesson 1? It's basically like that. Except, now that our generated media is a background, it has to go under our B-roll image. So here, let's add some B-roll photos. Then, let's put our solid color on a track beneath that. Go into Pan Crop for the photos to adjust the size. And there! You have your photo on a nice colored backdrop. This is useful for when you have B-roll that is a different size from your main footage, for showing multiple photos at once, or just to have a nice looking frame around your work. Next, titles and text. This, I'm sure, needs no introduction. Titles and text are used so often in video that we don't even notice it sometimes. To add your own words, let's go to the Titles and Text tab up top. Within this tab, Vegas has separated credit roll and titles and text. Credit rolls are for opening or end credits, like at the end of movies, where you see all the people who worked on the project and their roles. You may or may not need this, but if you do, it works the same as the solid colors. I would make a track for titles and text first. Then, just pick the one you want. Here, I'll use the first, plain scrolling on black, as an example, and drag it onto your timeline. Make sure your timeline cursor is on it so you can see your changes in the preview window. Here, there are lots of things you can type, so let's make an example. For title text, let's do Marketing Lab Promo. Sub-item text, credits. Item left and right can be role and name. And these will be the columns for your credits, right? So the first role is usually director, and on the right, my name, Dina Cho. Of course, I didn't make that video by myself. So, add one more role and name. Writer and Vicky Chen. Of course, on the right here, you can customize it further. I won't touch it now because it's already set up with the default standard. The other tab, Styles, is where you can change the font and sizing and such. Each text media from the media generator may have slightly different settings, so you can play with them to get your desired effect. For now, let's close and save, and then play that credit roll. Beautiful. Now, moving on to regular titles and text. Of course, There are lots of colorful special effects and animations in the title and text tab, so let's just look at the most basic default text. This large empty space here is for you to add your text. The text settings work much like any other text editor you may have used, like Microsoft Word or Google Docs. So all that is the same. You can choose your fonts here in the drop-down menu, size next to that, bold and italics right after, then alignment choices at the end. Let's type, "Welcome to the Marketing Lab," and adjust the size so I can see it. One thing to note is if it gets cut off in this little window here, it will get cut off in your actual preview too. Even if you go and zoom out later in pan crop, it still won't be visible. So make sure you can see your text here. And we can always adjust the sizing and position later with the pan crop tool. Text color selection works the same way as the solid colors we discussed earlier. And the animation drop-down menu has lots of choices if you want your text to move. Scale here means to make larger or smaller. But again, it may get cut off, so I would scale later inside the pan crop tool. We're gonna skip advanced and come down to outline and shadow. In outline, you can choose outline width and color, and this helps create a border around your text so it stands out and looks sharper, especially against a messy background. For example, in our Marketing Lab promo, our subtitles all have a black border so they can be read clearly. Under that, shadows is another feature that you can add. You enable or disable it by checking the box on the first line, and can fully customize it with the following options. Color is the same here, but let's look at the shadow offset, X and Y. Going back to our X and Y axes, X is horizontal and Y is vertical. These sliders move the shadow locations. If you were simulating actual shadows, then if your light is coming from the top left corner, you would want your shadow to be lower and more on the right. Lastly, the shadow blur. This one is how clear the shadow shows up. The higher the number, the blurrier the shadow. And if you go down to 0, it has no blur at all and is exactly the same as your original. If you have the shadow down to 0, it basically would achieve the same effect as if you had just copy-pasted your text onto another track. There's multiple ways to make the same effect. After you're done with this, close the window and save, and you can tell the media has been edited because of this icon next to the pan crop tool. Go into pan crop if you'd like to adjust the size and location. Let's pretend ours are subtitles and make them smaller and move them towards the bottom. And you're done. That is it for the media generator basics. There is no right or wrong here. These are all tools for you to have the look you want, so have fun with them. You can add lots of text on the same track as subtitles. You can stack multiple text tracks and make a cool pattern over a background for your title screen. The possibilities are endless. I hope you enjoy adding all your colorful media to enhance your story's clarity and creativity. Next, we will look at how to apply that creativity while switching between different shots and clips in Unit 15 Lesson 3, Transitions. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye!